TFO for short. TFO was founded almost on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. Since then, TFO has had uninterrupted discussions on films from all over the world every Saturday at 9 p.m. on Zoom. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. On some occasions, filmmakers, editors, and cinematographers have also joined our sessions. Aparna Sen, Amol Palekar, Girish Kasarvalli, and Adur Gopalakrishnan, to name a few. We have held film festivals such as East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, and others. In the month of June each year, to celebrate our anniversary, we hold a smartphone short film making contest for students and a lecture series in various university departments. This evening, we discuss Anatomy of a Fall. Abhijeet Ranadive will initiate the discussion. Abhijeet is an old friend of TFO and really doesn't need introduction, yet it is my privilege to introduce him to all of you here. Abhijeet teaches and writes about cinema, visual arts, media, and technology. His writings are published in mainstream Marathi newspapers and periodicals. He also works as creative head and member of the selection committee at the Pune International Film Festival. He has edited an art historical biography of the painter V.S. Gaitonde and selected writings of the painter Prabhakar Barve. He has translated L'étranger by Albert Camus from French to Marathi, a translation of The Creative Circuit, a collection of essays on the visual arts by the noted painter and theoretician K.G. Subramaniam from English to Marathi, is to be published soon. Some of his writings are available on his blog and the academia page. Welcome to you, Abhijeet, and over to you.
Thanks. Thank you for having me, first of all. And it's always a pleasure to be here and talk about films. Uh, Before we get into the talking about today's film, I would like to spend a few minutes over a tradition that French cinema has, and which is so they take their crime dramas very seriously. And when I say seriously, it means that normally in a crime drama there are certain elements that are there, such as some crime takes place, and then there is either a police procedural or some kind of an investigation, and eventually we come to know who the killer is or whatever. So when I say that the French do it differently, maybe the master of the genre, so to say, is a director called Claude Chabrol. Some of you might have seen a few films by him. He's from the French New Wave generation of directors. And so he had a very peculiar way of dealing with the crime drama. So first of all, in his films, uh, you always know who the killer is. And secondly, so in that sense, there is no grand revelation at the end or anything like that. And secondly, his films always used to, more than the investigation of the crime or the finding of the culprit, so to say, the films used to be more about providing a slice of life of French society, and more specifically of bourgeois French families. And very often it used to be a critique of the middle class or the bourgeois French people. So in that sense, in many of his films, sometimes it's a single crime, sometimes it's a serial killer, and we don't have to guess who the killer is. And what he does is, eventually you start realizing that it is the characters and what they're doing to each other and what they represent as a part of the society. which is really what he wants to show you. And of course, you will see that there are certain similarities between that and Anatomy of a Fall, in the sense that although it is a crime drama, so to say, and you can also classify that as a courtroom drama. The interesting thing is that apart from the police procedural or the courtroom scenes, what it is interested in is the marriage of this person, Sandra, who's accused of the murder of her husband. And slowly, as the plot unfolds, you start to understand her relationship with her husband and the problems therein, and so on. Of course, the other interesting thing in which the film differs is that there is a trial and she's acquitted, but there is no clear sense of closure, in the sense that uh, at the end of the film, if you're asked, do you really know whether she is guilty or innocent? I mean, the court did find her, the jury did find her innocent, but we can't say for sure. And I'll talk a little more about that in more detail a little later. But so in that sense, although it differs from the Chabrol drama, there is a similarity in the sense that in both these formulae, whether you know the killer or whether you don't know even at the end of the film whether a crime was committed even, and whether she is guilty or innocent, the accused. So the similarity is that in a way they're both trying to tell you that their guilt or innocence is not important, but what is important is what unfolds as a part of the investigation or as a part of the trial per se. And this is interestingly enough, it's not a one-off film. In the last few years, there has been a almost like you can say a new tradition of these crime stories, in which they play with this formula in various ways, and again try to show something different. For example, I think a couple of years ago, there was this film called The Night of the 12th, and do watch it if you can. It's also interesting because it's the story in which a murder takes place. 20, a young girl in her 20s, she is killed in the beginning of the film, and the rest of it is police procedural. But what is interesting there is that right in the beginning, even before the visuals come, you're told that this is based on a true story, and the case was never solved. So even before you start watching the film, you come to know that they're not going to find the culprit. Though we know in that case, we know for sure that a murder was committed. And so slowly, as the film unfolds, we realize that um the film is trying to say something about how men and women are. So there is this phrase in the film that says there's a clash between men and women today, and so it is a line that is said in the film by the police officer who heads the investigation, and he says that to the judge. So the French have this weird concept called the juge d'instruction, which is like while the investigation is happening, there is a judge that's presiding over the investigation. So he says that to the judge, juge d'instruction, saying that there's something wrong between men and women, and that is precisely what the film tries to say. So similarly, here it is, we can see that it's the marriage that we see slowly being analyzed. So it's almost as if, it's not the anatomy of just the fall, but it's also the anatomy of the marriage. But before we get into the actual marriage, a few things which are again critical to understand what's happening there, or something very interesting that's happening in the film, is the fact that Sandra is not French, and of course she's not just not French, but she's German, and it puts a very interesting angle to the film because. In a way, she comes across in the film as a fairly rational person. She has a certain control over her life, and this shows even in her achievements. So she has managed to write a few books. These books have become popular, so she is a celebrity in France. And so, as the trial is going on, we see people following that very closely. We also see that being discussed in television debates and so on. And what is at the heart of the marriage is, in a sense, or the sense that we get there, is that so she has this control over her life, and she has managed to create something out of her life through her discipline, through her rationality, uh, which the French husband hasn't managed to do. And that lies at the center of the marriage, and what it means to both of them, and what they say to each other, how they accuse each other, and so on. The other, in a way, corollary of her being German, and they're living in Grenoble in France, is of course something that comes out in that scene between the husband and wife, where when he accuses her of not meeting him, or creating a middle ground, she says, What the hell are you talking about? I'm a German person. French is not my native language, and you're making me live here where in the town where you grew up and everybody knows you, and I don't know anyone. And this whole language, even during the trial, we can see that there are multiple places where she's asked to speak in French, or even when this woman starts staying with them to protect the witness, her son. Sandra is instructed, you have to speak to your son, in French, whereas we have seen throughout the film that she's used to, and the two of them are used to talking in English. And so very often, even during the trial, she has to, stop talking in French to say things, because it's not her native language, and so in a way she's constrained by the language. And so that is something that of a difficulty that we sense she faces in her life in Grenoble, as well as in the trial. Um, so coming to the marriage, uh, there are several interesting things here. And so one thing to worthwhile noting is that the screenplay is actually written by the director Justine, and her husband. It's a husband and wife. It's a couple who have written the screenplay. And so in some sense, you have this, how do you call it? So when we say that the film talks of marriage, and it's also interesting when we consider some of the things that are discussed in the film, relating to the author and the work of fiction, or the author's oeuvre, because even that gets discussed as part of the trial. And so we get a sense that, are they, in a way, writing a script for the marriage, the husband and the wife? And the dichotomy, or the discrepancy between the two, or the fact that the marriage is not working, is due to the fact perhaps that her script is different from his script. Her interpretation of what that marriage constitutes and what the relationship constitutes is very, very different from what the husband senses that marriage to be, or their roles to be. And in a way, this is deeply connected to this issue of how is the writing and the writer, how are they connected? So again, something worthwhile noting is that even before the first shot, even before you see anything visually, the first line that you hear in the film is Sandra asking what turns out to be her interviewer, in what turns out to be a non-interview. She asks the interviewer, "What do you want to know?" And it's a very interesting way to start the film, because in some way, we sense that she's always, in her mind as a writer, she's always calculating that what is during the trial, or when she's talking to the police, when she's being asked very uncomfortable questions and all that. she's always calculating in her mind as to what do you want to know and what makes sense for the audience to know. So it's almost as if she's always performing for the audience. Um, and even the some of the questions that the interviewer has for Sandra, they're also important or interesting. So one question is, do you think one can only write from experience? And which we see becoming important when her books are discussed during the trial, and we realize that she's always taken elements of from her life, and she has built fiction out of that, and which the interviewer mentions. So she says that your books always mix truth and fiction, and then she says something very interesting that says on the lines that which makes the reader always want to know whether what they're reading is truth or fiction. And so that question is always, she seems to say that when reading your books, that question is always there in the reader's mind. Um, so in a way, uh, right from the beginning, we see that the storytelling of the film itself and the storytelling of Sandra, the way she builds the story of her life and of her marriage and all that happened between her husband and herself and even the child eventually. So it's all a part of a everything that's a part of the investigation is a part of her storytelling in a way. Um, and there's also a line that is repeated in one of the interviews that is seen on television, in which she is said to, I mean, the persons who are talking on the television, one of them, she says, uh, Sandra is supposed to have said, "My job is to cover the tracks so that fiction can destroy reality." And it's a very telling phrase because, in a way, you get a sense right from the beginning because we see that slowly, as events unfold, we see that she has withdrawn information or she has lied about what happened on that day or on the day before and so on, starting from the bruises. And of course, eventually she does have a plausible explanation for all the lies that she has told. But we're never sure whether uh, even after the lies are uncovered, what she's saying is the truth, or she's still trying to build her story. So, in some sense, uh, you get a sense that the entire film is uh, like a novel that she's trying to write out of her own life. And in a way, the acquittal is it's like saying that she succeeds in writing her story. Um, so of course, then the possibility or the question arises. So if she has she killed her husband? And if we say, for example, and I won't, I would honestly like to hear what everyone else felt about this question. So I won't really answer the question, but what I would like to say is, so there is one possibility that she has maybe killed him, and she gets away with it. There is, of course, one possibility that it was an accident, but as the forensic evidence seems to suggest, that is kind of ruled out. So then, perhaps as her lawyer tries to portray or tries to argue, perhaps it was a suicide. But then, if it was a suicide, then the question still remains that after, especially after we see rather we hear the recording of the argument between them from the day before, and we see the scene in real life. And it's also, it's a very interesting mise en scène if you see it carefully, because as long as you hear their voices uh, arguing, you see the scene. But as soon as the voices cease and the sounds of, she's supposed to have thrown glass, and then we hear a lot of sounds, uh, and there is an interpretation given or presented to the court about what exactly transpired. But exactly at that point, the visuals cut and we go back to the recording. So, in a way, again, uh, both the filmmaker and, in some sense, even Sandra, by not saying a word throughout that argument, we get a sense that information is withheld. So they, either Sandra or the filmmaker, or both, in a sense, are withholding crucial information about what exactly happened during the fight. And so that's also interesting. But so coming back to what I was saying, so there is always the possibility that the way she has treated her husband, knowing that he was seeing a therapist, knowing that he had psychological problems after the accident of the son, and so on, has she perhaps, by treating him in that rational and extremely logical, but which might sound very cruel at times manner. So although she keeps saying that she loves her husband, uh, we have to take her word for it. Although she says that their relationship was fueled by intellectual stimulation, we have to take her word for it, because in that scene that we hear and that we see, it is very clear that the husband is a very troubled individual, and he has a certain interpretation in which he is the victim. And so we have to end up asking this question: is he responsible in a way for his, even if he has committed suicide, is she responsible in a way for having driven him to that? And so the film never answers that question, but that is a question that remains, I think, and it is important. And so, in a way, we come back to this question as to what is reality. And so, by not giving you a very precise and unambiguous answer, um, we can say that the filmmaker perhaps wants to leave it open, in the sense that, in a marriage, it is always, it takes place between these two parties. And it is it really possible to uncover the truth? I mean, even for the involved parties, even for the husband and wife, even for the individuals in a couple, is it really possible to uncover the truth behind what that marriage is? And I think that is the point that the filmmaker is trying to make, that um, no, I mean, even if you were there, even if you were involved, perhaps, and perhaps because of that, you're not in a position to decide an objective truth, and perhaps there is no objective truth. The husband's truth may be different from the wife's truth. And if we even consider the child in that, perhaps even the child has a version. And so you see, even so, that interesting aspect is that eventually she's acquitted, we realize, thanks to the testimony of the child. And so, of course, the child conducts this experiment on the dog, and so the dog vomits, and so he builds this theory which he tells in the court in his testimony. And of course, the critical part also, that I believe makes the jury go towards one side and not the other, is this conversation between the father and the son in the car. And even there, the mise-en-scène is very, very interesting, because um, unlike the scene between the husband and wife, here we actually, over the scene, we hear only the son's voice. So we see the father talking, and we see his lips moving, but his lips are saying, and this is, it's a bit difficult to understand if you're not a French speaker. But actually, so precisely the words spoken by the child, as being said by the father, are precisely the words being said by the father, if you see the movement of his lips. And so it is very obvious, it is made very obvious that it is the son's interpretation, or perhaps the son is also the father of two writers, one successful, one unsuccessful, but still writers. And so it does leave open this possibility that has he written this scene? Because if you remember the conversation that takes place between him and the person who's with him, the caretaker, so to say. Uh, so she says something to the effect that if you don't have enough information to arrive at the truth, we have to make a decision. We have to decide for ourselves what the truth is. And it is after that that, the testimony happens. And so, has he decided for himself that this is the truth that he wants to believe in? And there's a very telling dialogue when the mother comes home after the acquittal and after she's had this dinner and all that. And he says, I was afraid of your coming home. And she says, I was also afraid of coming home. And is that, I mean, I was reminded of Chabrol precisely because of elements like that, because, the filmmaker leaves this possibility open that uh, if this was a testimony, in a way, a false testimony or a testimony authored by the son, then in a way, the mother would have sensed that. And so if she has sensed that, then, the mother and the son who have a lot of years to be together in the future. But what is this relationship going to be? Where the son knows that he has deliberately said something to the court to acquit his mother, and the mother also knows of that possibility. And so it's very telling that finally it's the dog who comes and lies next to her, because in a way, it's almost like saying that finally it's only the dog who is capable of unconditional love. So it's almost like neither the son nor the husband nor the wife. So as father and son, as mother and son, as husband and wife, all these relations in the family are kind of thrown apart by the film. And at the end, we don't know who's telling the truth and what that relationship is going to be going forward. So I think I've taken almost half an hour, so I'll stop here, but the discussion should continue.
Thank you so much, Abhijeet, for beginning with the larger question of the genre of crime drama, the courtroom drama, and then going into the film. That was very illuminating. And before, just a few things before we open it up for discussion. Um, what I found very interesting is that fights, between a husband and wife, when it enters the public domain, in this case, the courtroom, um, becomes, like perceived as triggers to something as terrible as murder. So that was something quite unsettling. And I also sensed, there was a hint of flirtation between the attorney and Sandra. So I was wondering if that really was there, then how objective his defense could have been. And of course, the child angle is also adds a layer to the complexity of the narrative, and you have already spoken about that so eloquently. And the reflections on the creative process, who is borrowing from life and from one's own experience, and how much, and the whole selection process on what to take and what to put into the fiction, all that was also something very interesting for me. And then the structure, like moving from the tight claustrophobic space of the courtroom out into the snow, and that house, which is again in a very telling fashion, like there is it's not a there is no neighborhood there. It's a single house, really lonely. It must be really lonely out there. And so that event, so shifting between this event and the reportage of the event, this whole temporal dislocation between the two, I thought added a complex dimension to the narrative. So, yeah, you'd like to say something, Abhijit?
Yeah, I was just thinking of saying, so you mentioned the snow. I found the snow and the snowy landscape very interesting because in a way it works almost as a metaphor for the marriage. The marriage is very cold right now.
Gold.
And she says there is love in it, but like I said, it is the snow all around that makes you almost feel the coldness in the marriage. And also this house in isolation. So in a way, it's almost like saying that, in a married couple, even if they have friends or even if there are many people who know them as a couple or think that they know them as a couple, still, it's a couple is a very isolated thing. And just like the house, so I found that the geography or that part of the film was, I think, very uh, interesting.
Yeah, it's open for discussion now. Yes, Nikhila?
Yeah, Abhijit, thanks very much for suggesting the film and coming back on TFO with once more a great film choice. I'd like to talk about precisely those two scenes, the flashback sequences that you mentioned, because I was also very, very curious and fascinated by how those two sequences work. So for the first sequence, for instance, where you have this montage of shots which establishes that this is an audio recording, and then there is a transcript, and then we move to a shot of Sandra, and then we see the visualization. So this is a visualization that we as spectators of the film are privileged to watch, not the people in the courtroom. So this is meant for us. So if we ask the question, why is it being visualized? So why are we being, privileged spectators? The way I read the scene is, I mean, this looks like an everyday, kind of a conversation in a domestic space. As Geeta said, something that it can happen in any couple. So when it is taken out into the public domain, so I felt that there are two temporalities that it's harking to. One, the words and what they mean in the context of the court, and two, as it is unfolding in the course of the conversation. So one thing is leading off to another, and of course you see how strong she is and how logical she is. And if you don't see it in the context of the way in which people in the court are seeing, it seems like a usual kind of sparring between couples. Yes, it ends in violence, and again, it is interesting why we are not again shown the violence on screen, or her. She says, I broke a glass. She's not lying. She's not saying he broke the glass. She said, I threw a glass and I slapped him. So there is no, I mean, she's not making up things. She is admitting to what she is doing there. The second scene, the second flashback sequence, again, where the son, Daniel, is testifying. And yes, even I found it very curious that the audio, so we see what is happening in the car, but again, this double temporality. The voice is still the son's. Like in the first sequence, the audio is still what we hear as it's unfolding in the court. here is the son talking about it here, and it's the father's voice which is getting erased, but he is very much there on the visual. So I was trying to think about this two temporalities, what might happen. Again, the son only knows in hindsight that the father may be talking not about the dog, but about himself. And again, this two temporalities become important, because what he didn't know then, now he knows. So that he's no longer talking about the dog. So I thought that this is my interpretation of the two scenes, and I felt that what your focus on, is Sandra in some ways, in what way is she culpable? I mean, did she drive him to suicide? Did she kill him? We'll never know. But I feel that's besides the point. I feel that the film is asking us to do something else, which is to re-evaluate everything that we see about this couple when it is unfolding, in a very different context, under different circumstances. And we, I think, mobilize all our prejudices when we evaluate her, particularly how assured she is, how, she seems pretty much logical. And he's claiming the victim position, and is she not able to see it? So these are I feel the film is for me very important because of all these reasons. It's immaterial, in what way she's culpable, but I thought the way it unravels so many different aspects of their relationship and puts them virtually on trial before us as well. We get to see something that the jurors and the others in the court don't see. So I think that counts for something. So thanks very much. It was wonderful to watch the film, also to listen to your opening remarks about the film, Abhijeet. Thank you.
And so one aspect that I failed to mention earlier, and which when you were talking about the husband and the wife scene, I remembered that what is also very interesting is this possibility that this person, he's been making, the husband, he's been making recordings of their conversations, of their arguments, and he's been sending them to his publisher. And so was that a staged fight? There is that possibility that he wanted to confront her, he wanted to provoke her into saying things which he might use against her in some way. I mean, he might use it in a fiction, or is he almost like, is he staging his suicide to make it such that it will be troublesome for his wife later on? And of course, the fact that the publisher hasn't responded, I mean, not responded positively, but he hasn't just responded at all, which kind of adds to his humiliation and the fact of his making a victim of himself. So that aspect, I think, was also brilliant. That possibility that he's staging these fights, he's staging these arguments to actually make something out of that.
Any other questions, comments?
Um,
Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead.
I joined a little late, so if something I repeat, if I am repeating something, just excuse me, because I couldn't join because there's some problem with the Zoom thing. Few things. This reminded me of one Japanese classic. What was that? Roshmer, or I can't recall the name immediately.
Rashomon.
Right. There, the reality depends upon who says that. And there is no one reality, there are multiple realities. It is somewhat like in Jain philosophy, there is a famous thing that truth has many facets. There is no one truth, they say. At least their philosophy, their thinking is like that. So in this case too, the director, I think, is emphasizing there are multiple realities. One reality, for instance, reality when it also changes with space. In the bedroom, in their closeness, there is some reality. But when it comes, gets exposed and court sees it, the reality changes its color or intensity or whatever it is. And for us, the viewers, because we see some additional information, true or false, there is another reality. And director has his own thing because he doesn't reveal what exactly he is thinking. So that is one thing. The second thing I felt, even as a viewer, was um, even at the end, while I was curious, I didn't want to know what really happened. I said that they're both are possible or something else is possible. Is it important that one should come to a conclusion? Because in life, there need not be one conclusion. Both it is almost like somewhere else she says there's a parallel universe, etc. Something similar, not in that sense, but the reality can be different depending upon who says what. And even for the child, like already somebody mentioned, he hears something and we see something. Both may not be compatible. And I don't know whether there is also language thing which you mentioned, whether they were talking in French and the boy is finally translating it into or English or vice versa. I do not know. But at least for the viewers, it is not clear that it could have been the dog he is talking about too. There is no certainty that he was talking about himself. That comes later. So it depends on the time. The reality also changes, whether it is made up by the child to save his or the mentor or whoever is there together with him. She is forcing him to decide when he specifically says he cannot decide. But you are asked to decide. It's almost like a jury is asked to decide when they are uncertain about it. So the reality is kept very vague, and director wants us to see that there can be multiple realities and there is no one truth. This is the way I felt. I would like your comments whether I am reading too much into it or is it my own imagination.
No, I don't think you're reading too much into it, and I think that's a very interesting point. In fact, when we talk about the child, there's also this, so he's in a way he's the most naive of the persons, and so if you remember in the beginning, he says, "I heard them, but they were not arguing," and then they go through this whole enactment of having the music and having the people talk, the dialogues and so on. And at some point, he says, "I must have been mixed up." And he's in a way he's speaking the truth that your memory or what you think you remember may not be the what really happened either. So it's not as if you're deliberately trying to mislead somebody into believing what the truth is, but he simply had, and he says at some point that what followed was so shocking that maybe it has affected my memory, or that's why I'm mixed up. And so he says this, and it's a very plausible explanation, but with that also the film makes the point that even when we say that we remember something, what we remember may not have really happened. It is our brain, the way it has interpreted that scene, that is what we remember, or that is what we say we remember.
It's almost like saying we. It's almost like saying we remember what we want to remember. Something similar.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah.
Yes, please, Rasha, go ahead.
Thank you, first of all, for suggesting the film and the discussion. All the points that you have pointed out are very interesting and which caught everyone's attention, I think. But I really I liked several points about the film, one of which Sir has already mentioned, the role of language. and how language is used for several functions, like for meeting in a middle ground, for compromise, for defending oneself. But what I found interesting is that since this woman is German, how could she not, like, why didn't she use her German language, her mother tongue, when defending herself in court? I am one of the people who find it very difficult, for example, to express my feelings or experiences in another language, let alone defending oneself when they are being accused of murder. So I found that interesting. Why using English, not German? And I thought, maybe is it because sometimes the German language is portrayed as this very mechanic and a very a language that you use to attack rather than defend. So maybe that was a choice made by her not to use the German language. And also, I like the many ways in which translation has been included in the film. The uh, the interpreter at court, the way they show the translated transcript of the audio of the fight on screen, and so many things, and also the differences between simple things as the expression of committing suicide, what it means in French and English, and the difference that in French you can commit suicide, that either you succeed or fail in killing in someone killing oneself. So that was interesting. The other point is that I found it interesting how the unconventional way of portraying gender roles in the marriage. Sometimes you would expect in such scenarios that the woman would be the one who would be the way the father was portrayed in this film. Samuel has become, after the accident of his son, the one who is being the caregiver of the family, the one who cooks, I have noticed, the one who teaches his son, and he's the one who's living in the shadow of his wife, going through her time schedule and everything, and she is the more mechanical woman who only cares for her needs, and like living and wanting to fulfill her sexual needs, not caring for the husband. I thought that was very interesting how these roles were reversed. You wouldn't expect that. Or maybe lately we shouldn't generalize and put people in specific roles. So that was interesting. And thank you so much.
Yeah, you brought up some very interesting points. And so you see, this whole thing that the wife is German, she's rational, she's in control of her life, and she has achieved something, she's disciplined. So all these are, and of course, the fact that she admits even to the husband and even to the court that she has slept with other people. Um, so it brings a very interesting aspect to the film because normally people like to take sides based on whom do they feel compassion for. And so in this case, you see, we keep hearing her side of the story, but we can very easily see that she's not a person who is very easy to like. And so it's almost as if the film, the director herself is a woman, by the way. So it's almost as if she's saying that I will make my protagonist someone whom you can easily dislike, and still you will, in a way, I will make you root for her in some sense, because towards the end, of course, the way the film unfolds, it's almost like a relief when we know that she is acquitted, and so that aspect becomes very interesting. And also, what you said about the language, it is also very interesting from the point of view of what is real. We can never arrive at that, partly because of the memory and the way memory plays games with you, but partly also because of the language itself. So if you remember when the police, at the scene of the crime, when the police come and they question her, so she's talking to them in English, and then they type her testimony, her whatever she has to say, but they do all that in French, and they give that to her to read, and she reads that, and she says something to the effect that, "But I didn't say this." And the policeman says, "Well, is the gist that matters." So we've just kind of roughly translated what you've said, but so the policeman is forced to write all that in French. So from that point onwards, it's almost as if her testimony or whatever she has to say uh, has become uh, difficult to communicate. So she's not going to be able to communicate what she wants the way she wants to the juries and the two lawyers and everybody else. So in a way, it's like saying that she may be the author. She may have scripted this and thought about this very well, and she is able to express herself very well. But at the end, it is all going to get translated, and it is all going to be translated not precisely, and we never know exactly what reaches the audience, what reaches the policemen, and what reaches the juries.
Murali Krishna has raised his hand. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thanks to Abhijeet for a good presentation. Now, if we see the filmography of Justin Triet, say for example, I can mention the films, her films, prior films. One is In Bed with Victoria and Sybil, for instance. So I think most of her films have a prominent female gaze. And this film, Anatomy of a Fall, is no different. And Sandra Huller has pulled off a wonderful performance. And see the character arc of Sandra. I think she is a riddle, and also, if I may say so, an enigma also. And see this woman. She wears her bisexuality proudly. As a mother, she loves her son Daniel, and she is also a successful writer, and she takes pride in what she has accomplished also. So she comes out as a very strong character, and the female gaze of Justin Triet is there in this film also. That's the first point I would like to make. The second one relates to the courtroom drama. So the courtroom drama, I think I am reminded of one other film, Saint Omer, which I saw in the 14th edition of Bangalore International Film Festival last year, that is in 2023. It has also a very good courtroom drama. Now, I don't know much about the legal system of France, but I think there is space, there is room, there is provision for extended discussion, because there is a scene where the movie treads along a very hilarious course, if I may say so. Because we see that prosecutor in a very aggressive mood always. And he takes refuge to quote Sandra's own books for evidence. And thereby making the criminal trial also a literary debate. I don't know whether there is that provision in the French legal system or not, but I found this issue to be quite interesting. That's all I told.
Yeah, very interesting points. And in fact, yes, so sometimes, and I like it very much that you mentioned Saint Omer, because, it's also another film that I mentioned at the beginning, that there is this new tradition of courtroom dramas or crime dramas where they try to use that kind of a situation to say something more profound. And in the case of Saint Omer, as some of you might have seen that film. It talks about the racism inherent in France, or it talks about the immigrant experience, because the person who's the accused there, and there is no ambiguity about whether she's committed the crime, because she's in fact a mother who has killed her child, and she admits that she's killed it. And the way the trial proceeds is, again, it becomes very interesting, because it's also directed by a woman, and it has a woman protagonist. And as the film goes on, you realize that uh, the kind of things that led her to this very, very tragic situation of having to kill her child. And there's also a parallel story of another Black woman who is in a very different social strata from her. So she's highly educated, she is a professor in a university, and she has come to the trial to figure out if she can write a book about it. So she has already written, I think, a couple of books, and she might write a book about this. And as she starts to understand what was happening in the minds of this poor woman and helpless woman, she starts understanding the similarities between her life and her own life. And so it's almost as if the film is trying to make you feel, if you are a Black woman, if you are an immigrant woman in France, then it doesn't matter how highly educated you are, you end up facing the same things. And so it's a very interesting film, and I would also highly recommend that to you if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, thank you, Abhijeet. Um,
May I add
Sam's,
something?
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, just about the language, two things I want. One, as somebody mentioned, there is a what do you call lost in translation type of thing. I mean, that is another type of reality. What really happens? She is unable to communicate, or the jury and even us, we are unable to understand because of the language. Some nuances are lost. The second thing somebody mentioned about why she didn't defend in German. Then I was thinking, as I being an Indian and speaking in English now, I my native language is not. I was not born with this language, but if I were to defend any time, I would probably use English rather than my native language. So it is a bit of a curiosity, or maybe both. So many of us are comfortable not necessarily in a language in which our parents taught us, but in the language we learned. So it is not a easy thing, but it is also sometimes difficult to convey certain emotions in a language we have learned compared to a language in which we were born. So what she says, but she is also victim both as a woman and because she is open about her relationship with men and women. And third, she is a breadwinner. Even that is taken as a negative thing because she doesn't care for. She mentioned somewhere that because of her only the family is alive because she is the one who is earning and all that. So she has her own disadvantages and the to defend. So we may have to look at her from that angle, not necessarily as a cold-blooded woman. And that's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, I missed that point about why doesn't she speak German earlier. So you realize that between the husband and wife, so they have, because both of them uh, have different mother tongues, so they have come to this decision some time back, I guess, about speaking in English and talking to the child in English. Um, Whereas in the court, if you follow what happens, in fact, she's instructed to speak only in French. And, it's only during the testimony at some point where she finds it completely unable to express herself in French, where she excuses herself and says, "Can I please go to take recourse to English?" So even that, is at the court's how do you call it, is the court's decision to allow her to speak in English. But I have a feeling that if she had instead asked to speak in German, then the court probably would have denied that.
There's someone going by the phone name Samsung SM. Please go ahead. You've raised your hand.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm Gopika Hari.
Okay.
I would like to note something about the title of the film and the main characters. So, just anatomy of fall. So, anatomy to me implies a more of a visual connotation because it's something that you have to see, and fall has a more of a kinesthetic approach. It's something that you experience a fall, like a fall from height. And if you look at the main, like one of the main what is the characters who are implied within who are implicated within the drama, it is a son who is visually impaired. So his kind of evidences, the trials that the experiments that he does is giving the medicine to the dog and everything. So it has like it's connected with taste. So I think like the film has utilized almost all the senses, even the haptic. So that kind of connections that the film makes, I think that also lends it a particular layers of different layers of meaning. Okay, how a visually impaired character helps in anatomizing the fall using a like a haptic or like taste wise mode of investigation. So I think that is a very interesting thing, like a very interesting aspect to look at a crime drama instead of always relying on visual evidences or like something that we are so used to. So I think that's a very fresh take.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point. And in fact, the choice of the screenplay to have the child visually impaired, I found it very telling also because of the fact that so we are trying to arrive at some kind of a reality or some kind of a truth in the trial, because unless the juries decide on what the truth is, they will not be able to decide whether she is guilty or not. So in a way, I think it is telling that the person who was visually impaired, it is his testimony that is constructed out of his memories, out of his this experiment that he conducts and all that, is what decides the truth eventually for the juries. So that is a very I found that aspect very interesting, that he's the one who's visually impaired and it's his testimony that makes them see the truth, so to say.
Yeah.
Any other responses? Vanmala, would you like to say something? Tarkeshwar? Sridhar? Yes, Murli Krishna, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, only one more point I want to add.
Yeah, sure.
I think, according to me, the film is suggesting that every marriage has some mystery in it. That's what I felt of in hindsight. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, a mystery in the sense that I guess there are certain truths that we can never reach in a marriage, in any marriage.
Any other interventions? Madhurima, would you like to say something? Yes, please go ahead.
It is a really interesting film. I had a point that had already been discussed. It was related to the notions of reality and truth. So, here in this film, how the narratives and even the ordering of the narratives influence the ideas of our reality, what the real incident is. And the inclusion and exclusion of certain narratives are also important in this way.
Like the film talks about how there can be multiple narratives. And I had a few questions like, what if the husband, what if he hadn't recorded the audio recording? Then the entire incident would not come. And then we would look at it or look at the mother in a very different way. And what if the son didn't have this memory with her father? Instead, the father might have mentioned something regarding the mother that might have had different implications. So if these things had not come, we would have a very different idea of what happened. So I felt like it was sort of, yeah, the issues of marriage, the relationships, those are important. But more than that, it was probably trying to say what we think of as reality or as truth. Maybe there can be multiple versions of it. And in a marriage or in every relationship, there would be many things. We cannot put everything on trial and then get to some conclusive point of it. And another point I liked was when this whole thing was over, and I am forgetting her name. The mother said that the writer said uh, that I have won everything. It is like everything has ended here. So if she lost, there would be certain punishment, but when she won, there is like nothing. So the whole thing about proving her innocence, the whole burden was on her, and in the process, she loses certain things. The relationship between the mother and the son, it changes, and then there is nothing. So it was a really, I mean, it made me question a number of things, the film. Thank you for recommending the film, and thank you for the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I was just trying to thank some very interesting points you made. So there is this dialogue in the film. Uh, I think when the recording is played, and Sandra's trying to defend herself. So she says something. Sometimes a couple is chaos and everybody's lost, and sometimes we fight together, sometimes we fight alone, and sometimes we fight against each other. uh, and so she's trying to say something similar to what you were the point that you were trying to make, that I think there are a lot of things in the marriage which if you were just to hear that one recording, the interpretation that you would have of this marriage would be very different from if you had not heard that recording, and if you were to go by her version of the marriage. Um, so she seems to imply that she still loves her husband, and even after all these problems, and there was something that was there between them, and which is probably true. But it never comes to the fore in the trial except when she sees it, because apart from her, just like the husband's suicide attempt is something that we only have to take her word for it. Similarly, even the love in the marriage, uh, it's only her word that we have to depend on for that. And so that puts a very interesting aspect on not just that marriage, but I think any marriage, that there are lots of things happening, but that never get talked about. But maybe one person remembers them in a way, and the other person doesn't remember them in the same way, and so it becomes very any marriage becomes very complex.
Yeah, couple is a
Right.
chaos is told when the therapist testifies.
Right, okay. So yeah,
Also,
in fact, sorry, go on.
yeah, so there was this scene when she and probably her a lawyer, they were both driving, and then he said, how you could not have mentioned it to me? And then she says that there will be certain extreme points in relationships, and if you focus on just that, then the entire narrative doesn't hold.
Right.
Any more comments? Would anyone? Yes, Prabhu, you have unmuted.
Oh, sorry, it was a mistake.
Okay.
Okay. I take this opportunity to thank Abhijeet and the organizers for this excellent one. It's a very well crafted movie, where you can never be sure about anything till the end, or even after you see the movie, nothing you can make out this way or that way. And that is the beauty of the movie, I feel. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Tarkeshwar, you have unmuted.
Yeah, as Prabhu said, it's a very interesting movie and a well-made movie. Thank you, Randeep, for the suggesting the movie and also for the discussion. I thought there are two institutions that get foregrounded in this narrative. One is the family, the other is the court or the justice system. Not only court, even the investigative team and forensic team, so-called, which employs science to arrive at the truth. And we know that what kind of truth it is arriving at. And then the other institution is family, which is actually doesn't imply the so-called scientific methods to arrive at the truth, but constructs the truth to keep it together in spite of the issues it has. The child, the kind of choices that he makes, there might be some kind of logical explanation to it, but is also is an interested party, as some of the dialogues themselves say, or the characters say. He has an interest in it. He has lost the father. He doesn't want to lose the mother now. So that principle also might have guided some of the choices that he makes in terms of choosing what he wants to believe as truth. So in that sense, an institution which assumes that there is a truth, we need to get at it. And there is an institution which constructs the truth to keep itself alive. That I thought quite interesting in the movie. Again, thank you for suggesting the movie and also for the discussion.
Thanks, my pleasure. And so this aspect that you brought out just now, that's also one reason why I was reminded of Chabrol, because very often he uses the family as a unit to almost dissect human relationships, and something similar is done here by Justin Trini.
Yes, Vanmala, please go ahead.
Vanamala, yeah?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I was just wondering if we discuss this aspect, that could she, that writer, could she have been charged with abetment to suicide? In some ways, like she uses his lines and the husband's some part of his writing, and she becomes more successful and she becomes the breadwinner. And it's so much about her, and her very presence, if it underlines his failure, like, is it possible that the court could have construed it as abetment to suicide? I was wondering if that angle was discussed. I joined a little later. That is one question. The other question I was thinking is, was it a kind of a vengeance, his vengeance on her, to kill himself in the manner in which he did, so that there is some doubt cast on her and so on. So just these two aspects.
Right. Yeah, so I have a feeling that abetment to suicide would have been even harder to prove for the prosecution, because that then we are, on very tricky grounds. I mean, of course, I'm no legal expert, so I don't know for sure, but that's the feeling that I get. And yes, the possibility that could he have, in fact, authored his suicide in this way to get his wife into trouble or to punish her in some sense, I think that's a very distinct possibility. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Vanmala. Any Any other responses? No? Okay. In that case, we will conclude the session now. Thank you, Abhijeet, very much for agreeing to initiate the discussion of this
Always my
film,
pleasure.
which you suggested yourself. And thank you all for logging in. See you next Saturday. Have a nice Sunday. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Abhijeet.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Geeta.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Good
Abhijeet.
night,
Thank
all.
you.
Thank
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
See you next week.
Yeah.